Imagine a place so cold that boiling water turns to ice. Mid-run, stepping outside for just 10 minutes could kill you. Welcome to Oymacon, the coldest inhabited village on Earth. But beyond the frostbite and frozen eyelashes lies a mystery. How did people survive here for centuries? What ancient secrets allowed a civilization to thrive in a land nature never intended for human life? This is not just a story of Coldest, a story of endurance, ancient knowledge, and the brutal edge of human survival. Hey guys, tonight we are going to a place where your eyelashes freeze together and your spit turns to ice before it even hits the ground. Imagine a cold so profound, so absolute, that it feels less like weather and more like a physical presence pressing in on you from all sides. We're traveling to Oymyakon, a remote village deep in the heart of Siberia, officially recognized as the coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth. It's a land of extremes, where the simple act of breathing requires caution, and a few minutes outside, improperly dressed, isn't just uncomfortable, it's fatal. You probably won't survive this, at least not without a local guide, a fur hat the size of a small bear, and a complete disregard for your phone's battery life, which will die in about 30 seconds. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And for a bit of fun, post your current location and what time it is for you in the comments below. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your journey doesn't begin in Oymyakon. It can't. You can't just book a flight and pop over for the weekend. The village is the destination at the end of a formidable pilgrimage. Your real starting point is a city called Yakutsk, the capital of the Sakha Republic in Russia. Yakutsk is itself a contender for the world's coldest major city, a place where January temperatures average a brisk -40 degrees Celsius. This is your training ground, your orientation lobby. But you're not staying here. You are pushing deeper into the white wilderness, to a place that makes Yakutsk feel like a tropical resort. You find yourself in the passenger seat of a UAZ 452, a legendary Russian off-road van, affectionately nicknamed the Bukanka, which means loaf of bread, because, well, it looks exactly like a loaf of bread on wheels. It's not a vehicle chosen for its luxury. There's no heated steering wheel, no fancy infotainment system. Your GPS is basically just a laminated map and the driver's gut instinct. The Bukanka is chosen for one reason and one reason only. It is a mechanical cockroach. It's simple, rugged, and can be fixed with a hammer and some creative swearing, which is exactly what you need out here. The van has been winterized to an almost absurd degree, with double-paned windows and extra insulation packed into every conceivable crevice. The engine, you're told, will not be turned off for the entire 2-day trip. Not once. To turn it off is to risk the oil congealing into a thick, useless sludge, and the battery dying a final, irreversible death. The van rumbles to life, and you pull out onto the only road heading east, the Kolyma Highway. And this is where the journey takes on a more somber tone. This isn't just asphalt and gravel, it's a monument. It's known as the Road of Bones. This is your first mainstream historical fact for the night. The road was built by Gulag prisoners during the Stalinist era of the Soviet Union, from the 1930s to the 1950s. Hundreds of thousands of souls, political prisoners, petty criminals, and innocent people caught in the unforgiving dragnet of the state, were sent to labor camps in this brutal, remote region. They mined for gold and built this very road, by hand, in some of the most hellish conditions imaginable. They worked through summers swarming with mosquitoes and winters so cold that steel tools would snap. The name, Road of Bones, is chillingly literal. The dead were often buried directly beneath the roadbed, their bodies becoming part of the foundation because the permafrost made digging proper graves an almost impossible task. Every kilometer you travel is paved with a history of immense suffering. As you drive, the landscape unfolds in a hypnotic, monochromatic panorama. Endless forests of large trees, the only type of tree that can survive the permafrost, stand like silent, skeletal sentinels. Their needles have long since fallen, leaving behind a stark, gray forest that stretches to the horizon. The world outside your window is a study in white, gray, and the pale blue of the sky. The sheer scale of it is humbling. There are no billboards, no rest stops, no signs of civilization for hours on end. just the road spooling out in front of you. Every so often, you cross a river, frozen so solid that the road simply continues right over the top of the ice. It's a strange feeling, driving over what you know is a powerful body of water, now tamed and silenced by the cold. Your driver, a stoic man named Sasha with eyes that have seen 1,000 winters, points to a small, makeshift shrine on the side of the road, a place to leave a small offering, a piece of bread, or a splash of vodka. It's a little quirky tidbit of local culture, a gesture to the spirits of the land to ensure safe passage. Some say it's for the spirits of the land, others whisper it's to appease the ghosts of the Gulag prisoners who still wander the road. You're not about to argue with tradition out here. The first day is a long haul, an 8 or 9 hour push through the emptiness. The van's heater blasts away, fighting a losing battle against the cold seeping through the metal frame. You can feel the chill radiating from the window, and if you press your gloved finger against the glass, it feels like touching a block of dry ice. You pass a few other vehicles, mostly heavy-duty trucks making their slow, grinding way along the highway. They give a solemn flash of their headlights, a brief acknowledgement of shared existence in this vast, frozen void. There's an unspoken camaraderie on the road of bones. Everyone knows the stakes. A breakdown isn't an inconvenience. It's a life-threatening emergency. The true human cost of this road remains a subject of intense academic focus, and historians still argue whether the death toll was in the hundreds of thousands or exceeded 1 million across the entire Kalama region. The records are incomplete, the memories are painful, and the sheer scale of the tragedy is difficult to comprehend. The number is almost abstract until you're actually here, feeling the profound isolation of the road itself. As dusk begins to settle, painting the sky in soft shades of purple and pink, you finally pull into a tiny, ramshackle settlement that serves as an overnight stop. It's not a town, more like a collection of wooden shacks huddled around a single, steaming, thermal pipe, a lonely outpost of warmth in the middle of an icy universe. The real cold, Sasha tells you, is yet to come. The morning arrives not with a sunrise, but with a subtle lightening of the deep, velvety darkness outside. The cold has intensified overnight. You can feel it in the very structure of the wooden shack you slept in. The air inside is chilly, but it's a sanctuary compared to the world beyond the door. Sasha is already awake, sipping tea that sends thick plumes of steam into the air. He gestures to a pile of clothes laid out on a spare cot. This isn't a suggestion, it's your survival protocol. Getting dressed here isn't a mundane morning routine. It's a deliberate, strategic process, like an astronaut suiting up for a spacewalk. Get it wrong, and the consequences are immediate and unforgiving. Your first layer is a set of thermal underwear. Sasha inspects it with a critical eye. No cotton, he says, in a tone that leaves no room for debate. Cotton, he explains, is the enemy. It absorbs sweat, gets damp, and then freezes, essentially wrapping you in a sheet of ice against your skin. Instead, you pull on long-sleeved top and bottoms made of merino wool or a high-tech synthetic blend designed to wick moisture away from your body. This is your second skin. Next comes the mid layer. You pull on a thick fleece jacket and another pair of fleece trousers over your base layer. You're already starting to feel bulky, your movements becoming slightly more deliberate. This is the insulation layer, trapping your body heat and creating a buffer of warm air. You're beginning to understand that staying warm here isn't about generating heat. It's about fanatically preserving every last calorie of it your body produces. Putting on all these clothes is a surprisingly effective morning workout. You're already breaking a light sweat, which feels deeply counterintuitive. Then comes the armor, the outer layer, a pair of enormous, puffy trousers that feel like you're stepping into a sleeping bag, and a parka so thick and imposing it could stand up on its own. This is where modern technology and ancient wisdom often collide. Survival experts still argue whether the time-tested performance of traditional reindeer fur coats, with their incredible insulating properties and breathability, can truly be matched by modern synthetic materials like Gore-Tex and Primaloft. In the unique, profoundly dry cold of the Sakha Republic, your gear is a modern hybrid, with a waterproof and windproof shell but filled with a massive quantity of high-grade goose down. This is your personal atmosphere, your shield against the void. Now, for the extremities, where frostbite strikes first and fastest. On your feet, you pull on one pair of thin liner socks, followed by 2 pairs of thick woolen socks. Then come the boots. These aren't your stylish winter boots from back home. These are either traditional Valenka thick seamless felted wool boots or untie boots made from reindeer hide with the fur on the outside. You slip your feet into a pair of untie, and the sensation is one of immediate, surprising softness and warmth. They are absurdly large but feel lighter than you expected. For your hands, a similar two-part system. A pair of thin inner gloves allows you some dexterity for small tasks, like zipping up your parka. Over them go a pair of colossal mittens, so thick that you can no longer make a fist. You can only hold things in a sort of clumsy, claw-like grip. Trying to use your phone with these on would be a comedy of errors. If your phone could even survive long enough to boot up, the final and most critical part is your head. You pull a soft balaclava over your head, leaving only a small slit for your eyes, nose, and mouth. The air you exhale is full of moisture, and if it hits the cold air directly, it will instantly freeze on any exposed surface: your eyebrows, your eyelashes, the fabric of your scarf. This brings us to a crucial, quirky, or fringe tidbit of local knowledge: the art of breathing. You're taught to wear a loose scarf over your mouth, not pressed tight. This creates a small pocket of pre-warmed air and allows your breath's moisture to crystallize on the scarf's outer surface, rather than on your skin, or freezing the fabric into a solid block against your face. It's a delicate balance. A useful historical aside here is that while traditional materials have been used for millennia, the science of modern cold weather gear owes a great deal to military necessity and the space race. The very materials in your parka and thermal wear were often born from research by entities like the US Army or NASA, who needed to protect soldiers and astronauts from extreme environments. This is your mainstream historical fact. The quest to conquer the cold on Earth was inextricably linked to the ambition to survive in the cold vacuum of space. Finally, the crown jewel, the hat. It's a traditional ushanka, but a serious one, made of reindeer or Arctic fox fur, with enormous ear flaps that tie down under your chin. It's so big you suspect it might have its own postal code. With everything on, you feel immense. You waddle more than walk. Turning your head requires a full-body commitment. You feel like the Michelin Man's heavily armored, slightly more anxious cousin. You look in a small, frosty mirror and see only a pair of eyes staring back from a mountain of fabric and fur. You are now ready. Sasha gives you a final, approving nod. You stand before the door of the shack, a simple wooden door that separates two entirely different realities. On this side, there is life, warmth, and breath. On the other side, well, that's what you came to find out. Your gloved hand rests on the simple iron latch, which feels cold even through your layers. You take a deep, preparatory breath inside your cocoon of clothing, the sound of it muffled and close. You are about to step out of the ship and onto the surface of another planet. You push the heavy wooden door open, and the world outside hits you not as a sensation, but as a physical blow. The cold doesn't just sting your skin, the tiny patch around your eyes is the only part of you that's even remotely exposed. It attacks your lungs. You take your first breath, and the air is so frigid it feels sharp, like you're inhaling a fine powder of microscopic needles. Your lungs clench instinctively. The moisture in your nostrils freezes instantly, and the inside of your nose feels brittle and strange. Sasha was right about the breathing. You quickly adjust your scarf, creating that small pocket of air to temper the shock. The light is bizarre. The sun is up, but it hangs low and weak in the sky, a pale, hazy disk that offers no warmth, only a flat, shadowless illumination. The air itself seems to shimmer, filled with millions of tiny, suspended ice crystals, a phenomenon the locals call Whisper of the Stars. It's beautiful in a stark, alien way. Everything is coated in a delicate, feathery layer of hoarfrost. It clings to tree branches, fence posts, and power lines, transforming the mundane into something magical and crystalline. The world looks like it's been sculpted from frozen light. You take your first few steps, and the snow under your enormous boots doesn't crunch. It squeaks. It's a high-pitched, almost styrofoam-like sound, a clear indication that the temperature is far, far below freezing. The snow is so dry, it has the consistency of fine sand. You look around, and your first impression of Oymyakon is one of stillness. It's a village in suspended animation. A thick, icy fog hangs low to the ground, a constant cloud created by the mingling of warmer air from houses, vehicles, and even animal breath with the brutally cold atmosphere. It shrouds the lower half of the village, so houses seem to float on a milky sea of mist. you notice immediately that the entire village is built on stilts. This isn't a stylistic choice. It's a fundamental requirement of building on permafrost. The mainstream historical fact here is that permafrost ground that remains frozen for at least 2 consecutive years underlies most of this region, in some places extending down nearly a mile. If you were to build a house directly on the ground, the heat from the building would slowly melt the permafrost beneath it, turning the solid ground into a soupy, unstable bog. The house would sag, shift, and eventually collapse. So, every structure, from the smallest shed to the 2-story schoolhouse, is elevated several feet off the ground on concrete or wooden piles. This allows the cold air to circulate underneath, keeping the ground frozen and stable. It gives the entire village a slightly temporary, almost transient feel, as if it could all be packed up and moved at a moment's notice. Your walk through the village is slow and deliberate. Your bulky clothing makes you clumsy, and you have to be careful where you step. A simple fall could be disastrous, not just because of the risk of injury, but because getting your clothes covered in snow would compromise your insulation. You see a few other people out and about, moving with a practiced, energy-conserving shuffle. They are bundled up just as you are, anonymous figures in a landscape of white. They offer a quick nod or a raised mitten in greeting, their faces completely obscured by fur and scarves. There are no fences, as you might know them, just simple wooden posts and railings, everything looking brittle with frost. You see dogs, a specific local breed called the Yakutian Leka, with thick double coats that allow them to not only survive but thrive here. They lie curled in the snow, their plumed tails wrapped over their noses for warmth, looking completely unbothered by conditions that would kill most other animals in minutes. They lift their heads as you pass, their breath instantly turning to little puffs of steam. A quirky tidbit about life here is the laundry. You see a line strung between 2 posts where clothes have been hung out to dry. Except they don't dry, they freeze dry. Within minutes of being hung up, a wet pair of jeans or a shirt becomes as rigid as a sheet of plywood. The water molecules sublimate, transitioning directly from solid ice to water vapor without ever becoming liquid. After a day or 2 outside, the clothes are brought back inside, where they thaw out, stiff but completely dry. It's a beautifully simple use of the extreme environment, a kind of natural high-tech clothes dryer. That, as you continue your walk, you become aware of a constant, low hum. It's the sound of the village's heart, a single, massive heating plant on the edge of the settlement. This plant works around the clock, burning coal to heat water that is then piped throughout the village in a network of massive, heavily insulated overhead pipes. These pipes are the village's arteries, its lifeline. They run from the plant to every home and building, a visible, tangible representation of the collective effort required to exist here. Without that central plant and its heated water, life in Oymyakon would be impossible. You can see where the pipes enter the houses, a constant source of warmth battling the constant, oppressive cold. Historians and sociologists who study Arctic communities often discuss the psychology of the pipeline. Scholars still argue whether the constant visual and audible presence of this shared infrastructure fosters a stronger sense of community interdependence or a heightened sense of vulnerability, a constant reminder that individual survival is tied to a single, fallible mechanical system. You look at the pipes, wrapped in thick insulation and shimmering with their own coating of frost, and you can feel both. The village is a network, not just of people, but of pipes, a fragile web of warmth spun against the vast, indifferent cold of the Siberian taiga. The silence you first perceived isn't silence at all. It's just that the normal sounds of life are muffled by the snow, the fog, and the all-encompassing presence of the cold itself, leaving only the hum of survival. Your walk through the frozen fog eventually brings you back to your UAZ Bukanka, which is sitting exactly where you left it, still grumbling away. The engine hasn't stopped, and it won't. The concept of parking your car, turning it off, and walking away is a luxury that doesn't exist here for half the year. This is one of the most jarring logistical realities of Oymyakon life. During the coldest months, from about November to March, residents who own vehicles must make a choice. Either keep their car running 24/7 or park it in a specially designed heated garage. Most people don't have the luxury of a heated garage. Those are for essential community vehicles, like the ambulance or the fire truck. So, the private cars, the sturdy UAZ vans and the occasional hardy Japanese 4x4, are left idling for months on end. You can imagine the fuel bill. It's a staggering expense, but it's cheaper than the alternative, which would be replacing a cracked engine block or a frozen transmission. At these temperatures, rubber becomes as brittle as glass, tires can freeze into a non-circular shape, and the oil in your engine turns into a thick, waxy solid. Starting a car that has been allowed to cold soak at -50 degrees Celsius is not just difficult, it's mechanically catastrophic. So the engines run and run and run, a constant rumbling chorus against the squeak of the snow. Sasha pats the side of the van affectionately. He explains that even with the engine running, you can't just jump in and drive off. The chassis and suspension components are still frozen solid. You have to ease the vehicle into motion gently, allowing the parts to warm up from the friction of movement. You watch as a local man gets into his own idling truck. He spends a few minutes rocking it gently back and forth before he even attempts to pull out onto the street. It's a delicate automotive ballet. Now, you might be thinking about another basic necessity: plumbing. If water freezes in an engine block, what happens to the water in your pipes? The answer is simple and stark. For most homes in Oymyakon, there is no indoor plumbing. The risk of pipes freezing and bursting, even with the best insulation, is just too high. The central heating plant provides warmth, but the final, personal connection for water and waste is a different story. This is where you come face to face with the reality of the outhouse. Yes, the outhouse, at -50 degrees. It's a small wooden shed, set a short distance from the main house. Inside is a simple wooden seat over a deep hole. There's no light, no heat, just a roll of toilet paper and the bone-chilling certainty that this is not a place for leisurely contemplation. Using the outhouse is a mission undertaken with military precision and speed. The cold that seeps up from the hole is profound. It's a detail of life here that is often glossed over, but it's a fundamental, daily reality for the people of Oymyakon. It is, without a doubt, a character-building experience. So how do people get water for drinking, cooking, and washing? This brings you to another quirky tidbit of local logistics. Since piping water directly to homes is out of the question, it's delivered in blocks. The village has a water station where a truck fills up with fresh, clean water. This water is then left to freeze in large, manageable containers. Residents come to the station with sleds to collect these giant ice cubes. They haul them back to their homes, where the blocks are kept in the cold porch area. When water is needed, they simply bring a block of ice inside and melt it on the stove. It's a laborious system, but it's foolproof. Ice doesn't burst pipes. This system of managing essential resources has deep historical roots. The mainstream historical fact is that the settlement of this region was only made possible by Russian expansion and the search for resources, particularly furs and, later, gold and other minerals. The indigenous people, the Sa'a, had been living nomadic or semi-nomadic lifestyles here for centuries, perfectly adapted to the climate. But the creation of permanent settlements like Oymyakon was a Soviet-era project, driven by the desire to exploit the mineral wealth of Kolyma. This push required imposing a sedentary lifestyle on a landscape that is fundamentally hostile to it. Scholars still argue whether the Soviet Union's aggressive settlement policies in the Arctic were a feat of engineering and social organization or a profound and tragic miscalculation, creating communities that were, and remain, almost entirely dependent on external supplies of fuel and food, a legacy that makes them incredibly vulnerable. You see this dependency everywhere. Every piece of machinery, every liter of diesel, every bag of flour that isn't produced locally has to be trucked. And over the same road of bones you traveled, this supply chain is long, tenuous, and expensive. A breakdown on the highway doesn't just mean a delayed Amazon package. It could mean a delay in essential fuel for the heating plant. This shared vulnerability shapes the community. Hoarding is frowned upon, and mutual support is an unspoken rule. If a neighbor's car finally gives up the ghost, someone will be there to help. If a family is running low on firewood, a neighbor will share theirs. In the deep cold, community isn't a social ideal, it's a survival mechanism. As you stand there, feeling the vibrations of the idling van through the soles of your giant boots, you realize that every convenience you take for granted, a running tap, a flushing toilet, a car that starts on command, is a complex luxury. Here, life in Oymyakon is a constant, daily negotiation with the laws of physics. After a morning spent grappling with the profound, life-altering cold and the bizarre logistics it enforces, your stomach begins to rumble. It's a strange sensation, feeling a basic, warm-blooded need in a world that seems designed to extinguish warmth. Sasha nods, understanding. It's time to eat. He leads you away from the idling vehicles and the hovering ice fog, towards a low, single-story, wooden house. Smoke, thick and white, billows from its metal chimney, a welcoming plume against the pale sky. This is the home of a local family he knows, and you've been invited for a meal. You step inside, and the transition is almost violent. You move from the stark, silent, frozen world into a pocket of overwhelming warmth, life, and smell. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, savory cooking meat, and the unmistakable aroma of a well-lived-in home. You are immediately instructed to begin the lengthy process of shedding your outer layers in the small, unheated porch area, the veranda. This acts as an airlock, a buffer zone between the inside and outside. Your massive parka, your snow pants, your giant boots, everything comes off. The sudden release from the heavy, constricting gear feels like shedding a skin. You are left in your fleece and thermals, which are more than enough for the cozy interior. The heart of the home is a large cast-iron stove, radiating a heat that feels almost alive. The family welcomes you with warm smiles and quiet greetings. You are ushered to a simple wooden table, and the hospitality is immediate and genuine. In a place where resources are hard-won, sharing a meal is a significant gesture. The food that appears on the table is a direct reflection of the land. There are no fresh green salads, no delicate seasonal vegetables. The growing season here is brutally short, and importing fresh produce is prohibitively expensive. The diet is, by necessity, rich, fatty, and overwhelmingly carnivorous. This is not a place for vegetarians. The centerpiece of the meal, and your introduction to the local cuisine, is a dish called stroganina. Your host brings out what looks like a small, frozen log of wood. It is, in fact, a fisher broad whitefish, or a chur, caught in the nearby Indigirka River during the brief summer, and flash frozen instantly upon being pulled from the water. This is a crucial, quirky, or fringe tidbit of culinary science. The instant freezing creates microscopic ice crystals that don't rupture the cells of the fish, preserving its texture and flavor perfectly. The host takes a sharp, stout knife and begins to shave the frozen fish into long, thin, almost translucent curls. The frozen slices fall onto the plate like delicate wood shavings. You are instructed to eat them immediately, while they are still frozen solid. You pick up a piece with your fingers. It's so cold it almost sticks to your skin. You dip it into a small bowl of salt and pepper, as is tradition, and pop it in your mouth. The sensation is extraordinary. It's not like eating sashimi. It's firm, almost crunchy at first, and then it begins to melt on your tongue, releasing a clean, delicate, surprisingly rich flavor. It's refreshing and fatty at the same time. It's a food born of pure cold. There is no other way to prepare it. It is, in its own way, the perfect expression of Oymyakon. Next comes the meat. The dominant animal protein here is reindeer, the indigenous evenk, and even people have been herding reindeer in this region for centuries, and the animals are perfectly adapted to the harsh climate. You are served a hearty, steaming stew of reindeer meat and potatoes. The meat is lean, dark, and has a rich, slightly gamey flavor, somewhere between beef and venison. It's incredibly warming, a bowl of pure fuel. There's also horse meat, another staple. The local Yakutian horse is a remarkable breed, short, stout, and incredibly resilient, able to forage for food under the snow and survive the winters with minimal shelter. You are offered a slice of cured horse meat sausage. It's dense, dark, and packed with calories. This high-fat, high-protein diet is essential for survival. It provides the slow-burning energy needed to maintain body temperature in the extreme cold. This dietary adaptation is a key mainstream historical fact of life in the Arctic. The traditional diets of circumpolar peoples, from the Inuit of North America to the Sami of Scandinavia and the Saka of Siberia, are famously metan-fat heavy, because these are the most efficient and available sources of the immense caloric energy required to survive the cold. You also sample khan, a type of blood sausage made from horse or beef blood and fat. And for dessert, you're given a dish of whipped cream mixed with local berries, lingonberries, or cloudberries that were picked in the short summer and preserved through the winter. It's light, airy, and a perfect, slightly sweet counterpoint to the heavy richness of the main courses. The question of how these traditional, high-fat diets affect long-term health is a fascinating area of study. Scientists and nutritionists still argue whether the apparent health of indigenous Arctic populations on these diets is due to genetic adaptations that allow for more efficient fat metabolism, or if the extreme physical demands of their environment simply burn off calories that would be detrimental in a more sedentary society. As you eat, you notice there are no glasses of cold water on the table. Instead, everyone sips hot tea. Drinking cold liquids is avoided as it forces the body to expend precious energy just to warm the liquid up to body temperature. Everything is about the preservation of heat. The meal is more than just sustenance. It's a lesson in the local ecology, history, and the science of survival. Every dish on the table tells a story of ingenuity and adaptation, of making a life in a place that offers so little in the way of conventional agriculture. It's a diet that would be considered extreme, even unhealthy, in a temperate climate, but here, in the pole of cold, it is the taste of life itself. As you share the meal, sipping hot tea and feeling the warmth of the stove seep into your bones, you begin to learn more about your hosts. They are Saka, the indigenous Turkic people, who give their name to the vast Saka Republic, an area of Russia roughly the size of India. Their story is one of incredible resilience and adaptation, a testament to the human ability to make a home in the most inhospitable corners of the globe. Your host, a man named Aryan, tells you a little about his family history. His ancestors were not always here in this specific valley. For centuries, the Saka people were semi-nomadic pastoralists, moving with their herds of hardy Yakutian horses and cattle. This mainstream historical fact is central to understanding their culture. They were not originally an Arctic people in the same way as the coastal-dwelling Inuit or Chukchi. Their roots are in the drier, warmer steppe regions to the south. Their migration northward into this frozen land over 1,000 years ago is a remarkable feat of cultural and biological adaptation. They brought their horse and cattle culture with them, and through generations of selective breeding, developed the unique breeds you see today. Animals capable of withstanding the punishing winters. You look at Aryan and his family. Their physical features are distinct epicanthic folds around the eyes, high cheekbones, and a generally stocky build. For a long time, it was assumed that their ability to thrive here was purely cultural, a result of their knowledge of the land, their traditional clothing, and their diet. But more recent genetic research has revealed a fascinating biological story. This is a topic where scientists still argue whether the primary adaptations are metabolic, circulatory, or a complex combination of both. Some studies suggest that the Saka people have a higher basal metabolic rate, meaning their bodies burn more energy at rest, effectively acting like a personal internal furnace. This could help maintain core body temperature in the extreme cold. Other research points to adaptations in their circulatory system. They may have a unique pattern of blood flow that allows them to maintain warmer temperatures in their extremities, helping to ward off frostbite. This is a critical advantage in a place where touching a piece of metal with a bare hand can cause your skin to freeze to it instantly. This brings us to a rather strange, quirky, or fringe tidbit that touches on this idea. Some early ethnographies reported that Saka hunters could perform delicate tasks with their bare hands in temperatures that would incapacitate a European, suggesting a physiological difference that local knowledge had long taken for granted. While difficult to prove scientifically, it speaks to a deep, lived-in relationship with the cold that goes beyond simple acclimatization. Their bodies, over countless generations, have become finely tuned instruments for survival in this specific, extreme environment. Aryan's wife Sardana shows you some of their family's traditional clothing, while you are kitted out in modern high-tech gear. She brings out a magnificent coat made of reindeer fur, intricately decorated with beaded patterns. The craftsmanship is stunning. She explains that the traditional designs are not just decorative, they have spiritual significance, acting as protective charms. She also shows you a pair of untied boots, similar to the ones you are wearing, but these are for a child, decorated with colorful threads. The traditions are passed down from generation to generation, the knowledge of which fur is warmest reindeer, which is most durable horsehide, and how to stitch them together to create a garment that is both a tool for survival and a work of art, is a vital part of their cultural heritage. Their language, Saka, is a Turkic language, which makes it a linguistic anomaly in this part of Siberia, where most indigenous languages belong to other families like Tungusic or Uralic. It's a living link to their southern origins, yet it is also a language that has evolved to describe the world of ice and snow, with a nuance and precision that English lacks. They have dozens of words for different types of snow, ice, and cold, each describing a specific condition that is critical for a hunter or herder to recognize. This is a classic example of how language is shaped by environment, a vocabulary built not just for communication, but for survival. You learn that their traditional beliefs are also deeply intertwined with the landscape. Their worldview is a belief system that sees spirits in the natural world, in the forests, the rivers, the sky, and, most importantly, the cold itself. The Lord of the Bull, a mythological creature symbolizing the winter frost, is a powerful figure in their folklore. Winter is not just a season, it is a living entity, a powerful spirit that must be respected and appeased with rituals and offerings. This spiritual framework provides a way of understanding and coexisting with the immense, often terrifying power of their environment. It's not about conquering nature, but about finding a harmonious balance within it. Listening to them talk, you realize that the people of Oymacon are not just surviving, they are living their lives woven from a rich tapestry of ancient tradition, deep environmental knowledge, and incredible biological fortitude. They are the human element that transforms this impossibly cold place from a geographical curiosity into a genuine home. The warmth of the family home and the richness of the meal stand in stark, almost surreal contrast to the history that permeates the very ground beneath your feet. As you talk more with Sasha and the family, the conversation eventually, perhaps inevitably, turns back to the road that brought you here, the Kalima Highway, the Road of Bones. The story of Oymyakon and the surrounding region is inextricably and tragically linked to the darkest chapter of Soviet history, the Gulag. Sasha grows somber. He tells you that while Oymyakon itself wasn't a major camp, it was a crucial administrative and supply point along the vast network of labor camps that stretched across the Kalima region. The real reason for the road's existence, the engine behind its construction, was the discovery of massive gold deposits in the 1920s. For Joseph Stalin, Kolyma's gold was essential. It was needed to fund the rapid industrialization of the Soviet Union, to build the factories, tractors, and tanks that would make the USSR a global power. This is the core mainstream historical fact of the region's modern history. The development of Kolyma was fueled by prison labor, a brutal calculus where human lives were a disposable resource in the quest for gold. The state established a massive, sprawling enterprise called the Dalstroy, a trust that had virtually unlimited power over the region. It was a state within a state, controlling everything from mining and road construction to the administration of the hundreds of camps. From the early 1930s until Stalin's death in 1953, a relentless river of prisoners was sent to Kolyma. They came from all over the Soviet Union. They were political dissidents, intellectuals, poets, and artists deemed enemies of the state. They were kulaks, the so-called wealthy peasants who resisted the collectivization of agriculture. They were priests, ethnic minorities, and former prisoners of war, and they were common criminals, mixed in with the political prisoners, often used by the guards to terrorize and control the others. The journey to the camps was an ordeal in itself. Prisoners were packed into cattle cars for a journey across Siberia that could take weeks, then loaded onto ships for the voyage across the Sea of Okhotsk to the port of Magadan, the gateway to Kolyma. From there, they were marched or trucked into the frozen wilderness, to camps with names that still echo with dread. Elgin, the women's camp, whose name ironically means dead in the local Yakut language. Serpentinka, the execution camp, where prisoners were shot. Their task was to build the road and to dig for gold, often with the most primitive tools, pickaxes, shovels, and wheelbarrows. They worked 10, 12, 14 hours a day, in conditions that beggar belief. In the summer, they were plagued by swarms of mosquitoes and black flies. In the winter, they faced the soul-crushing cold of Oymyakon, often with inadequate clothing, thin cotton jackets, and worn-out boots. Frostbite was rampant. Malnutrition was a constant. The daily food ration was a piece of bread and some watery soup, nowhere near enough to sustain a body performing hard labor in sub-zero temperatures. Death was a daily occurrence, from cold, starvation, exhaustion, or at the hands of the brutal camp guards. This is where the story gets even darker. And it's a quirky or fringe tidbit that is almost too grim to be quirky. Some survivor testimonies speak of a grim camp hierarchy, where the most coveted job was not in the kitchens or the infirmary, but in the morgue. The morgue attendant had access to the bodies of the dead, and in the desperate struggle for survival, the clothing of the deceased was a valuable commodity. It's a detail that illustrates the absolute depths of human degradation the prisoners were forced into. The sheer, staggering loss of life is what defines the Kolyma Gulag. The exact numbers will never be known. The records were often deliberately destroyed or falsified, but conservative estimates suggest that out of the roughly 3 million prisoners who were sent to the Dalstroy camps, at least 500,000 perished. Some historians, like Robert Conquest, have put the number far higher. Historians still argue whether the Kolyma Gulag was a system of extermination through labor, akin to a Nazi death camp, or if the horrific death toll was a byproduct of gross negligence and the inhuman prioritization of economic goals over human life. It's a fine distinction, and one that offered no comfort to the men and women who died in the frozen mud. The writer, Varlam Shalamov, who survived 17 years in the Kolyma camps, wrote the definitive account of this horror in his book, The Kolyma Tales. He described Kolyma not as a camp, but as a planet apart, a place where all notions of humanity were stripped away, where a man's only friend is another man about to die. His stories are not about heroes or villains, they are about the complete and utter disintegration of the human spirit in the face of absolute cold and absolute cruelty. After Stalin's death, the camps were gradually closed, but the legacy remains. The road you drove on is there, unmarked. Grave, aging mining infrastructure, the ghost towns of abandoned settlements, they are all monuments to that suffering. The people who live here now are not the perpetrators, but they live in the shadow of this history. It's a quiet, heavy presence, a story that isn't often told to outsiders, but one that is known and felt as you sit in the warmth of the home. The knowledge of what happened just outside these walls, on that road, adds a profound and somber depth to your understanding of Oymyakon. It's a place of incredible natural extremity, but also of the most extreme human cruelty. Life, however, has a stubborn way of asserting itself, even in the shadows of a dark past and the grip of a brutal climate. The next day, you get a glimpse into the surprisingly normal rhythms of daily life in Oymyakon. The sun performs its low, lazy arc across the sky, and the village hums with the quiet business of another winter day. Your attention is drawn to the most resilient members of any community, the children. You walk towards the local school, a two-story building that, like every other structure, stands on stilts. It looks sturdy and well-maintained, a splash of color against the white landscape. You wonder how they even get children to go to school in this weather. The answer lies in a specific, locally agreed-upon rule. School is only cancelled if the temperature drops below -55°C -67 for the younger children, or -58°C for the older ones. Today, the official thermometer at the weather station reads a balmy -52. So, school is on. You see them, little figures bundled up so completely they are almost spherical, making their way to school. They waddle in their thick snows, their faces covered, only their eyes visible, sparkling with a youthful energy that seems immune to the cold. They chat and laugh, their voices muffled by scarves, their breath creating a cloud of steam around their heads. For them, this is just a normal Tuesday. This isn't an extreme weather event, it's just weather. Inside the school, it's a hive of warmth and activity. The children shed their layers, revealing normal school clothes underneath. The classrooms are bright and warm, heated by the same network of pipes that supplies the whole village. The curriculum is standard Russian, but with a strong emphasis on their local Sakha culture, language, and traditions. The mainstream historical fact is that the Soviet education system, while often used for ideological indoctrination, was also responsible for achieving near-universal literacy across the vast and diverse territories of the USSR, including remote, Arctic communities like Oymyakon. This legacy of placing a high value on education persists today. The school is not just a place of learning, it's the social heart of the village, a place for concerts, community meetings, and celebrations. Work in the village is, as you've seen, dictated by the climate. The primary employers are the heating plant, the school, the small clinic, and the local administration. Some men work as mechanics, keeping the village's essential vehicles running. Others are hunters and trappers, heading out into the taiga for days at a time to hunt for reindeer or trap sable, fox, and ermine for their valuable pelts, a trade that has sustained people in this region for centuries. The women often work in the public sector or maintain the household, a task that, as you've seen with the logistics of water and laundry, is a full-time job in itself. But it's not all work and school. People need to have fun, even at -50, and they do. You see a group of older boys who have cleared a patch of snow on a frozen pond. They're not playing hockey with skates. The ice is too brittle and cold for a standard skate blade. Instead, they're in their Valenki boots, kicking a ball around in a chaotic, joyful game of winter soccer. The ball makes a dull thud each time it's kicked, and it doesn't bounce so much as skid. You also learn about the premier winter festival in the region, the Pole of Cold Festival. It's held in Oymukon to celebrate its status as the coldest place on Earth, and to attract the few, hardy tourists who make the journey here. The festival includes reindeer races, displays of traditional arts and crafts, and performances of Saka music and dance. It's a moment of bright, defiant celebration in the darkest, coldest part of the year. One of the festival's highlights is an appearance by Chiskon, the master of the cold, a figure from Yakut mythology. This is a great quirky or fringe tidbit. Chiskon is a sort of pagan Santa Claus, a keeper of the frost with a magnificent horned crown. According to the modern folklore promoted by the festival, Russia's own Father Frost, or Dead Moroz, comes here to Oymukon to receive the symbol of cold from Chiskon before beginning his journey to deliver presents for New Year's. It's a brilliant piece of cultural branding, blending ancient myth with modern tourism. The question of whether these modern festivals and the influx of extreme tourism genuinely help preserve traditional culture or inevitably dilute and commodify. It is a constant source of discussion among scholars still argue whether the economic benefits of tourism in such remote indigenous communities outweigh the cultural costs of performing one's identity for an outside audience. Looking at the genuine pride on the faces of the locals during the festival, it seems to be a complex balance. As evening approaches, you see families visiting each other. Social life is crucial here. In the long, dark winters, visiting a neighbor for tea and conversation is the primary form of entertainment. It's a way to combat the isolation that the vast, empty landscape can impose. The community is tight-knit, bound by shared hardship and a shared, stubborn love for their unique home. They have carved out a life that is not just about survival, but about community, tradition, and even joy, proving that human warmth can be found in the coldest corner of the world. Your time in Oymukon has been a masterclass in human and mechanical adaptation, but the environment itself feels like a character in this story, a powerful, invisible force that dictates the rules of reality. The extreme cold doesn't just make things chilly, it fundamentally alters the laws of physics as you know them. Spending time here is like visiting a natural science laboratory, where the experiments are constantly running all around you. One of the most famous demonstrations of Oymukon's bizarre physics is the Mpemba effect on steroids. You've probably seen videos of this. A local takes a cup of boiling water and throws it into the air. Before it can even begin to fall as liquid, it instantly vaporizes and then crystallizes, erupting into a huge, glittering cloud of ice crystals that gently floats back down to Earth. It's a spectacular and beautiful trick. Sasha offers to let you try it. Someone boils a kettle, and you are handed a metal mug of steaming water. You step outside, away from the houses. The cold hits you again, that familiar sharp intake of breath. On Sasha's count, you fling the water up and away from you. The effect is instantaneous and magical. The whoosh of the water transforming into a solid is audible. For a moment, you are standing in your own personal, shimmering snowstorm. The science behind it is fascinating and, believe it or not, still debated. The popular explanation is that hot water contains less dissolved gas and has lower viscosity, allowing it to break into smaller droplets that freeze more quickly. Another theory suggests that in hot water, the hydrogen bonds are stretched and store more energy, allowing for a more rapid rate of cooling. Scientists still argue whether the primary mechanism is related to evaporation, convection, or the unique properties of supercooled water. But whatever the reason, the result is pure spectacle. This weird science extends to everyday objects. Technology, in particular, wages a constant, losing battle against the cold. Your smartphone is basically useless. Outdoors, the liquid crystals in the screen slow down and freeze. The battery's chemical reactions grind to a halt, and it will die within a minute. Even keeping it in an inside pocket of your parka is a risk. Professional photographers who come here have to use old-school mechanical film cameras or keep their digital cameras wrapped in special insulated casings. With spare batteries kept close to their body heat, metal becomes your enemy. Touching any piece of metal with a bare hand is a recipe for instant frostbite and a lost layer of skin. The metal acts as a thermal superconductor, sucking the heat from your hand at an alarming rate. This is why doorknobs are often wrapped in leather or cloth, and why mechanics have to use tools with rubberized grips. There's a quirky tidbit that wearing glasses with metal frames can be dangerous. The metal can get so cold that it can cause minor frostbite on your nose and temples. Many locals opt for plastic frames in the winter. Even the air itself behaves differently. Sound travels differently in the dense, cold air. Sounds are sharper, clearer, and seem to carry further. From the edge of the village, you can hear the distant hum of a truck on the highway with perfect clarity, but the constant ice fog also muffles sound, creating a strange acoustic environment that is both sharp and muted at the same time. And then there's the permafrost, the frozen ground. That is the foundation of everything. The mainstream historical fact that connects Oymyakon to a much more ancient world lies within this permafrost. It is a perfect, natural deep freeze. In recent years, as the climate has warmed and some layers of permafrost have begun to thaw, incredible discoveries have been made in this region. Perfectly preserved Ice Age animals, woolly mammoths, woolly rhinos, and prehistoric horses, complete with skin, fur, and even liquid blood, have been found eroding out of riverbanks. Oymyakon is on the doorstep of a prehistoric lost world. These finds have provided a treasure trove of information for paleontologists and geneticists, some of whom are even exploring the controversial idea of de-extinction, using preserved DNA to one day bring these ancient creatures back to life. The permafrost is both a preserver of the past and a ticking time bomb for the future. Climate change is a tangible reality here. Locals will tell you that the winters aren't quite as severe as they used to be. The official record low, an unbelievable -67.7 degrees Celsius, -89.9 Fahrenheit, was set back in 1933. Haven't seen temperatures quite that low in recent years. While that might sound like a good thing, the thawing of the permafrost poses a catastrophic threat. It can release vast amounts of trapped methane, a potent greenhouse gas, into the atmosphere, and on a more immediate level, it threatens the very foundations of the villages built upon it. Roads buckle, buildings sag, and the entire infrastructure of life here is at risk. The strange science of the cold is what makes Oymyakon unique, but the slow, inexorable change in that science is the single greatest threat to its future. You stand there, watching your breath turn to ice in the air, and realize you are in a place where the deep past and the uncertain future are colliding in the most dramatic way possible. The day doesn't end. In Oymyakon, with a glorious sunset, there's no fiery spectacle of orange and red. The sun, which has been phoning it in all day from its low position on the horizon, simply gives up. The pale blue light thins, turning gray, then a deep, bruised purple, and then, with surprising speed, it's gone. The transition from day to night is less a closing curtain, and more like a switch being flicked in a very, very large room. And with the departure of that faint light, the temperature drops even further, as if the last vestige of warmth has been vacuumed into space. You are back inside the cozy wooden house, the heat from the stove a tangible presence. Looking out, the double-paned window, which is intricately patterned with frost ferns. The world has become a simple study in black and white. The snow on the ground seems to glow with a faint, captured light, and the ice fog still hovers, lit from within by the few scattered streetlights and the warm glow from other windows. The village at night feels even smaller, a tiny archipelago of light and life adrift on a vast, dark, frozen ocean. And then there is the silence. During the day, there was the hum of the village, the distant sound of engines, the squeak of snow. At night, many of those sounds die away. The silence that descends is profound. It's a heavy, physical presence, a silence so deep it feels like it has weight. You can almost feel it pressing against the walls of the house. In this quiet, new sounds emerge. You become aware of the house itself, the creak of wood contracting in the cold, the gentle hiss of the heating pipes. Suddenly, A sharp crack, like a rifle shot, echoes through the night. It's so loud and close it makes you jump. Your host just smiles knowingly. It's not a gunshot, it's a tree. This is a phenomenon known as a frostquake or cryoseism, and it's your quirky or fringe tidbit for the night. The water and sap inside a tree freeze and expand, creating immense pressure. Eventually, the wood gives way with an explosive crack, a sound of the forest itself shivering in the cold. It's an unnerving, elemental sound, a reminder of the immense power of the frost. Sasha suggests you step outside for just a moment. The process of gearing up again feels familiar now, a ritual of wrapping and sealing yourself against the void. You step out onto the porch, and the cold is more intense than anything you've felt before. The air is perfectly still. You look up, and your breath catches in your chest, this time not from the cold, but from sheer awe. The sky is unlike anything you have ever seen, with no light pollution and air that has been scrubbed clean of all humidity and haze. The stars don't twinkle. They burn with a fierce, unwavering intensity. They seem close enough to touch. The Milky Way isn't a faint, dusty band. It's a brilliant, textured river of light, a celestial highway paved with diamonds. The constellations are so clear and bright they look like illustrations in an astronomy book. You don't need an app to find Orion or Cassiopeia. They are blazing in front of you. It's so immersive you forget about doom scrolling on your phone. This is star scrolling, and it's infinitely more satisfying. This experience is central to the human history of the North. The mainstream historical fact here is that the long, dark, and incredibly clear nights of the Arctic winter were the cradle of rich oral traditions. With little else to do for months on end, communities would gather in their homes, and the elders would pass down stories, myths, genealogies, and epic poems. This was not just entertainment. It was how culture, history, and a sense of identity were preserved and transmitted through generations, all under the silent watch of these brilliant stars. And if you are truly lucky, the sky will dance. The aurora borealis, the northern lights, often make an appearance here. A faint green glow might appear on the horizon, growing in intensity, beginning to ripple and wave, a silent, ethereal curtain of light shifting and swirling across the heavens. It might be green, or it might have streaks of pink and purple. It is a spectacle so beautiful and otherworldly it feels spiritual. It's easy to understand why ancient cultures saw these lights as the spirits of the ancestors or messages from the gods. Even with a modern, scientific understanding of solar winds and magnetospheres, the sight is pure magic, a light show that requires no subscription fee. The psychological impact of this environment, the endless night and the profound isolation, is complex. Psychologists and sociologists still argue whether the extreme darkness and quiet of the Arctic winter primarily foster a deeper sense of community and introspection, leading to creative and spiritual pursuits, or if it contributes to higher rates of seasonal affective disorder and other mental health challenges. For the people who live here, it is likely both a source of beauty and trial in equal measure. You stand there for a few minutes, a tiny, warm creature under an infinite, blazing, silent sky. The cold begins to seep through your layers, a reminder that you are only a visitor here. But the image of this night, the profound silence broken by cracking trees, the impossible brilliance of the stars, and the eerie beauty of a world frozen in time, will be seared into your memory forever. This is Oymyakon's final lesson. In the most extreme and unforgiving cold, there exists a beauty and a stillness that is profound, powerful, and utterly unforgettable. The journey to the pole of cold is now drawing to a close, and with it the sharp sting of the Siberian air begins to fade from your mind, replaced by the comfortable warmth of your own bed. The vivid images of the road of bones, of houses on stilts shrouded in a frozen fog, and of the brilliant, silent stars in the night sky can now soften, drifting gently into the background of your thoughts. The memory of the squeaking snow under your boots and the taste of the melting, frozen fish on your tongue are just echoes now, details in a story that has been told. You are far from that world of extremes, safe in your own quiet space, where the only chill is the one you choose with an open window or a fan. Let the deep, profound silence of the Oymyakon night be a comfort, a reminder of a stillness that exists in the world, a quiet so complete it can calm the busiest mind. There is no need to brace against the cold any longer. You can release that tension from your shoulders, letting your body grow heavy and relaxed. sinking deeper into the softness of your pillow. The journey is over. All that is left to do is rest, to let the gentle rhythm of your own breathing guide you into a peaceful, well-deserved sleep, carrying with you just the faint, beautiful whisper of a world sculpted from ice and light. Kind of people live in a place where your breath freezes instantly and your skin begins to die in just minutes. Welcome to Oymacon, Siberia's frozen ghost of a village, where temperatures drop to a bone-shattering -71 degrees Celsius, -95 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a place where cars must run 24/7, school closes only below -60 degrees Celsius, and survival is an ancient tradition, not a choice. In this chilling, true story, we uncover the daily rituals of the people who defy death every winter, the ancient secrets passed down to survive impossible cold, how this remote village has adapted for centuries, and the shocking dangers that strike if you stay outside too long. This isn't just the story of a village, it's a battle between humanity and nature's cruelest climate. Subscribe for more survival stories, ancient places, and unbelievable real-life history.